God's abundant provision. Lesson 1. The Israelites in the wilderness. A lesson in God's abundant provision. Have you ever felt like you're walking through a wilderness? A dry, lacking, confusing place, and it seems God is silent? Let's remember the story of the Israelites. They left Egypt, left the shackles of slavery, to embark on a journey to freedom. But that path to freedom crossed a wilderness. No markets, no homes, no water, no food, just hot sand, dry winds, and sighs of despair. But God was there. Every morning when they opened their eyes, manna fell from heaven, covering the ground like dew. No one had ever seen it before. They asked each other, "What is this?" And Moses replied, "This is the bread which the Lord has given you to eat." In the evening, quails flew in, settling in the camp, so they had meat to eat. When they were thirsty, Moses struck the rock, and water gushed out. Every day, God provided just enough, not too much, not too little. If anyone kept manna overnight, it spoiled, stank, and bred worms. Only on the Sabbath did God allow them to keep it. Why? Because He wanted them to trust Him day by day. And that is also a lesson for you, for me, today. We often want to know in advance, to have in abundance, to feel secure. But God does not promise to give us enough for the whole year. He promises to give enough for today. He lacks no resources, but He wants us to learn to live by faith. What are you worried about? Finances, work, family, the future? Remember, God never forgot to provide for His people in the wilderness, so He will not forget you in the dry places of life. If today you only see sand and scorching sun, look up, because manna will come in ways you don't expect, and water will flow from seemingly dry rocks. Live today with the faith that God is enough, and He will provide. Lesson 2. The parable of the faithful servant and the talents. A lesson in managing and increasing God-given resources. Have you ever thought, what you hold in your hands today, your talent, intellect, health, or time, are they truly your own? Or are they merely a trust from a heavenly master? In Matthew 25, Jesus tells of a master preparing to go on a journey. Before leaving, he called 3 of his servants and entrusted them with his possessions, each according to his ability. The first received 5 talents, the second 2 talents, and the last 1 talent. No one received more or less than their own capacity. The one who received 5 talents immediately invested them and gained 5 more talents. The one with 2 talents did the same and gained 2 more. But the one with 1 talent dug a hole and buried his money in the ground, not out of laziness, but out of fear. When the master returned, he called them to settle accounts. The one with 5 talents returned 10. The one with 2 talents returned 4. Both heard the most beautiful praise from the Lord. "Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness." But to the one who buried his talent, the master's words were stern. "You wicked and lazy servant. So take the talent from him and give it to the one who has 10 talents. You see, not everyone has much, but everyone is entrusted with something. God doesn't ask how much you have. He only looks at what you do with what you have. Whether it's 5, 2, or just 1 talent, He desires to see faithfulness. Perhaps you think, "I'm not as good as others. I have nothing significant to offer God." But do you know, a word of comfort, a moment of listening, a heart willing to help, these can also be the asterisk talents God entrusts to you today. He doesn't demand that you double it like someone else. He simply invites you to use what He has placed in your hands faithfully. Live like the faithful servant. not to be praised, but because you understand all that you have comes from God, and one day you will stand before Him with hands not empty, but full of the fruit of faithfulness. Well done, good and faithful servant. Come and share your master's happiness. Lesson 3. The poor widow offering 2 small coins, a lesson in giving from the heart. In the temple that day, many came to offer their gifts, gold, silver, heavy bags of money. Each coin dropped into the offering box resonated with proud sounds. People marveled, nodding in approval at the wealth and generosity. But Jesus looked towards a small corner where there was a humble, poor, solitary woman, a widow. Her hands trembled as she dropped 2 tiny coins into the box, meager, almost insignificant. No one noticed except Him. Jesus turned to His disciples and said, "Truly I tell you, this poor widow has put in more than all the others." He didn't look at the amount of money, He looked at the heart. Others gave out of their abundance, but she gave all she had to live on. 2 small coins, but it was all her trust. 2 small coins, but it was unconditional love for God. She didn't keep anything for herself, didn't calculate, didn't hold back. She gave with pure faith, with a heart full of surrender and entrustment. Perhaps today you don't have much, no extra money, no status, not a prominent person in the crowd. But what God sees is not the quantity, but the motive. Not the amount given, but the heart that gives. He doesn't demand you to give big. He only asks, do you trust me enough to give what is precious, even when you don't have much to spare? When you give in abundance, that is gratitude. But when you give in scarcity, that is a living testimony of faith. God doesn't need your money. He wants your heart. A heart willing to give, believing that He will provide. Today, what 2 small coins do you have? Perhaps it's time. It's prayer. It's a small act for someone in need of help. Give to the Lord, not out of abundance, but because you believe He is the provider. And one day, you too will hear His words. You have given more than all the others, not because of quantity, but because you gave everything with a loving heart. Lesson 4. The Parable of the Dishonest Manager, a lesson in financial wisdom for the future. What would you do if you knew you were about to lose everything? Lose your job, lose your status, lose security, lose control? That question was once posed to a manager in Jesus' parable, a seemingly dishonest person, yet praised by the Lord. In Luke 16, there was a manager accused of wasting his master's possessions. The master called him, questioned him, and ordered his dismissal. At that moment, the manager knew he was about to lose his job. He thought, I am not strong enough to dig, and I am ashamed to beg. What shall I do so that when I lose my position, people will welcome me into their houses? Then he called each of his master's debtors and reduced their debts. One owed 100 measures of oil, he wrote down 50. Another owed 100 measures of wheat, he wrote down 80. The surprising thing was, the master praised that manager, not for his dishonest actions, but because he had wisely prepared for his future. Jesus said, "For the people of this world are more shrewd in dealing with their own kind than are the people of the light. I tell you, use worldly wealth to gain friends for yourselves, so that when it is gone, you will be welcomed into eternal dwellings." This story does not encourage deceit. God does not approve of greed or unfaithfulness, but He commends something greater: farsighted wisdom, knowing how to use what is temporary to prepare for what is eternal. Money, status, material possessions, all these things will pass away, but how you use them today can create eternal results. You can use money to feed selfishness, or use money to help others, support the church, and show love for God. When money runs out and fame fades, It is those friends you once helped who will welcome you into eternal dwellings. Don't wait until you lose your job to care for your soul. Don't wait until money runs out to think about the kingdom of heaven. Live with discernment, managing money not just for tomorrow, but for eternity. Be a shrewd manager, not because you are perfect, but because you know how to use what is temporary to invest in what is eternal. Whoever is faithful with very little will also be faithful with much. And those who are wise today will be welcomed into eternal dwellings. Lesson 5. Peter finds money in the fish's mouth, a lesson in God's supernatural provision and power. Have you ever worried about money? About bills that are due soon? About an unexpected expense that you don't know how to handle? You are not alone. Even Peter, a close disciple of Jesus, once faced that very question. In Matthew 17, the temple tax collectors came to Peter and asked, "Doesn't your teacher pay the temple tax?" Jesus knew they were testing him. He gently explained that the king's son doesn't have to pay taxes, but to avoid causing offense, he chose to pay, and he didn't ask Peter to borrow money, nor did he say, "We are short." He simply commanded, "Go to the lake and throw out your line. Take the first fish you catch, open its mouth, and you will find a 4 drachma coin. Take it and give it to them for my tax and yours." A coin in a fish's mouth. Not in a wallet, not in someone's pocket, but a miracle found in nature. No one could have thought of that, but God can. This small story teaches us a big lesson. God has infinite power to provide for all the needs of his children. He is not limited by human logic or calculations. He can send a fish with money, use an unfailing jar of oil, or send manna from heaven. He sees our needs in advance and already has a solution. Perhaps you are facing financial difficulties. Perhaps you are saying in your heart, "Lord, I don't know how I'll make it through this month." Remember, Peter only needed to obey, go to the lake, cast his line, and God took care of the rest. You too. You don't need to know how God will do it. You just need to obey and walk in faith. The coin in the fish's mouth is not a fairy tale. It is the imprint of a living God who sees, knows, and provides. Believe that even if you don't see the solution now, God already has the coin in a place you least expect. The Lord is my shepherd. I lack nothing. Reflecting on these 5 stories, I don't just see miracles. I see a merciful, intimately present, and supremely wise God. He doesn't just give, he teaches. He doesn't just provide for what's lacking, he molds faith. The Israelites in the wilderness weren't starving, but they also weren't allowed to hoard. Because God didn't want them to live by their storehouses, he wanted them to live by faith each day. The faithful servant didn't need to have much, only to be faithful with what he had. The poor widow didn't give a large sum, only her whole heart. The manager wasn't perfect, but he knew how to use the temporary to invest in the eternal. And Peter didn't need to worry about calculations just to cast his line, because God had prepared a miracle in the very ordinary. God doesn't demand you to have a lot. He simply invites you to live faithfully, wisely, and with complete trust in him. Whether you have a full purse or just 2 small coins, whether you are in the middle of a wilderness or facing the question of how to make ends meet, remember, God does not forget you. He is still the one who provides manna, still the one who can make a fish carry money, still the one who sees your every silent act and will give a reward no one can take away. Live today with trust, not just to survive, but to invest in eternity. If God's word has touched your heart today, I invite you to leave a comment below as a testimony to what God is doing in your life. Don't forget to click like to support this ministry and subscribe to join me on future lessons. May God's grace always be with you and your family.